This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. Welcome to our flower series. In this video, we're making cone hydrangeas. It's broken down into steps, so you can skip ahead, rewind, and rewatch as desired. We're going to make a couple of colors today for our cone hydrangeas, and I'm actually going to make two in the same bowl to start with, and that's going to be for my petals. And I'm using American style buttercream. You can see I've got quite a bit because this flower is going to have a big mass. And we're going to use the following liquid gel colors: royal blue, lemon yellow, and finally some neon bright pink. I'm going to start out making the color for my petals, and I'm just going to use some of that neon bright pink and eventually a little bit of the yellow. So I want to make a nice light shade of pink, not too dark. Just give it a little bit of color. Just kind of mix that around till we get a nice even blend of that light pink. And then I'll move some of it over and add just a tiny touch of yellow. So a little bit of a peachy vibe with these. I like where this is going. I think it maybe just needs to be just a little stronger, just so it reads a little better. So that's lovely. So let's take a little of this, move it over to one side, leave a little bit over here, and I'm just going to add a tiny touch of yellow to that. And this should give me kind of a sherbety vibe to this side. And then I'm just going to blend them lightly to get them ready to load into my bag. There we go. So you can see you got a little bit of difference. It's pretty subtle. It's not too extreme. And I'm just going to kind of fold them loosely. And that should give me some nice changes in color. You can see it's kind of mixed together, but not well. The two colors are still separate, but they're kind of almost like marbleized there. And that's just how I'm going to load that into my bag. So we're going to make the color for the centers now. And I'm just going to go with a little bit of yellow. Not too much. We want to make a nice light color. And then a teeny tiny speck of that blue. Just enough to give it a hint of green without being too strong. I just want something that's going to read against that kind of great little peachy color that we already made and have a nice kind of vibe that goes with it. So not too dark, but making it a little green will really help it pop off of that beautiful kind of creamsicle peach color that we made. I like to go really light with the blue to start, just to make sure it's not too overpowering or too bright. Can even use just a tiny touch more. It's still kind of reading pretty yellow, and I want it to definitely be like a green shade without being too maybe like lime, citrus, electric. I think that's just enough to kind of kick us right into the right territory. You can see now we've got a nice green vibe going, but it's still very light, nice pastel, and it's really going to pop out in the centers of those little blossoms. We're going to use two bags for this project. The first, you can see we have with a coupler. We're going to be using the tip and also just the coupler to make part of the structure. So we're going to need to take that off and on. And the second is fitted directly with the tip. We have our bag of peach fitted with a coupler, and we're going to use a number 102. So this is a small petal tip. Our bag of green, we're using with a number 2. Let's review the techniques for our cone hydrangea flowers. The first thing we're going to do is actually pipe that cone. And we want to think these as a little different than our regular hydrangeas. We're not going to pipe a dot. We're going to pipe the dot. There it goes. Let it build up and then slowly pull up while we do it and kind of off to the side. I like to think of them, oh, there we go, paper's misbehaving, almost like little gnome hats. So you can see it's got some height and some structure, and it's kind of leaning off slightly to one side, and that's going to make for a great surface to pipe our little blossoms on. For the petals, we're going to do our normal teardrop shapes. We're just using our 102 so that they're nice and petite. So out, spin, or rotate your bag just a little bit, and then pull back. And then we're going to do some on their sides as well. We like to give the hydrangea petals some nice kind of dimension. So just giving it a little squeeze on its side so you have some that stand up like ridges are going to help create the look of our 4 petal blossoms. For the centers, we're doing dots, and we're using a number 2 tip. So just remember, you want to be up off the surface. We're going to be perpendicular to it, so the actual angle of the bag is going to change depending on where on our little cones we're piping these. But we just want to give it a nice little squeeze. Let our frosting form a dot, stop, and circle around to make a nice smooth finish. And since we're using a small tip, they're going to be really tiny. Now that we've reviewed techniques, we're going to go over how we put them together to create our cone hydrangeas. We're going to first use just the coupler to build up that nice uneven style tall mound. So think about making a dot and then pulling up slowly and gently off to the side. If you're making a bunch of these to put on a cake, you can pull them at different angles to give you a slightly different look. Then we're going to go ahead and pipe our nice little 4 petal blossoms. These are just going to be kind of like a regular hydrangea, except we're using a 102, and we're going to do 3 of them kind of flat against the surface of the cone, and make sure to do 1 kind of on its side. And that's going to give us a little bit of depth and dimension to those blossoms and make it look like those petals are kind of maybe gently ruffling in a nice little soft breeze. In order to put our flowers on, we're going to start at the base, go all the way around, and work up in concentric circles, doing them offset. So you want to kind of nest them in tightly. If you're making your cone the same color as your blossoms, they don't actually have to be as tight because the eye will kind of blend all that color together, and just imagine that there's more flowers there in the gaps. Once we go all the way up, put a nice one on top to finish it off, we're going to switch bags and pick up the one for our dots. So that's going to be our green with our number 2. And we're just going to go and place a dot in the middle of each flower. You can always do a once over at the end and make sure there's no big areas. And if you have some little open spots that look like just a little too big, you can always put in a nice sideways petal or 2 to fill in any area and give it that extra fullness that it might need. Since we've reviewed everything we need to get started, we're going to go ahead and begin piping. I've got my 3-inch flower nail. I've got my parchment paper stuck on with just a little bit of buttercream. And I'm going to start with just the coupler. And you'll notice I've used the ring to help secure that coupler in place inside the bag so it can't move around on me, especially not wiggle up, which can create a big mess. And that gives me a nice large opening to create this cone. So I just want to start up off the surface, give it a little wiggle if it's uneven. You can even give it a little spin to help even out the shape, and just pull up slowly and give it a nice little jaunt to the side. Sometimes they're harder to finish with just the coupler than the tip, but you can see it kind of slumps over a little bit. We've got a nice fat base and it tapers slightly up. So perfect little lumpy shape that we're looking for. The more uneven and irregular they are, the more beautiful these will end up looking. We've got our cone ready. I've got my number 102 on my bag, and we're gonna start piping petals. And you're just gonna change up the back end of the bag, the angle, so that you can get in there and make those nice little teardrops wherever you need to. So just rotate however you need to. I'm gonna try and kind of keep it facing you all as much as possible. You can see I do 3 flat against the surface, and then 1 on its side, just to give it a little bit of extra dimension. And we're just gonna go around the bottom, and it shouldn't actually take too many blossoms to get you all the way around. And you can kind of mix up which one you do sideways. So don't think they always have to be the same. The more variation you can give your little petals, the better. And if you get back to the beginning and there's a little awkward space and you need to, you can always throw in just an extra petal or two just to kind of fill up the area. Now that we've gone all the way around once, you need to kind of reposition your bag, readjust, but I'm going to start in between 2 flowers, up, above, and start my next little row. And it probably won't take more than 3 rows to fill this up, possibly 3 rows and 1 on the top. And there's going to be a little awkward area where you kind of go underneath that dip. That one got a little 3-petal flower, so just a little bit of a cheat. So just keep working until you fill in all that area. And once we do, we'll switch to our bag of 2 with our green and put on some little centers. You can see we're going to go now up top and just put on a little blossom anywhere it needs it to fill in. I think I've got room for one more really great one right there. And right now it looks pretty busy. You can see it's got a lot of texture. It looks beautiful and delicate, but they're kind of undefined. So we're going to use those little dots to really make all those individual little flowers stand out for us. So we've got our bag of 2. We're going to just go in and do a tiny little dot in the middle of each of our little flowers. And if you lose track of your flowers even, that's okay. You can just kind of put those dots anywhere you think they should go. Sometimes I actually start to have it all blend together and I almost lose track of my little flowers. So just anywhere there's kind of 4 petals meeting together, you can see that starts to help it stand out. It just gives it that little punch of green that it needs. And just keep working until you get them all. Beautiful. And there we have a lovely little cone style hydrangea flower. You can see it has that nice soft lean to it that if you combo a bunch of these little groupings together will make for a wonderful and dynamic floral arrangement because it's going to have some height and depth and a slightly more unusual and soft natural shape to them. That's all for this lesson on cone hydrangeas. If you liked this one and you want to do some more blossoms in this style, give our lesson on lilacs a try. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like more about the cake decorating materials and equipment we use, or just some inspirational videos about cake decorating itself, you can follow us on Insta or YouTube at Cake Decorating School. If you'd like to know more about yearly membership and what it entails, you can go to www.cakedecorating.school.com for more information. And if you're interested in these products, you can check the links in the description.